Wait, my cat is in the way. Can you please? I'm doing movie reviews now. Don't ask me why. It's just like I love movies. I think like all my friends know this about me. But and I was just like writing this review on Letterbox. I have some of the on there, and I was like, why not just like do a deep dive on like my favorite movies? Like when I have nothing to do, like I don't know, be productive, be do some shit with your life. And so today we are doing a deep dive on Sinners. Why are we doing a deep dive on Sinners? Well, obviously, first of all, it is one of the movies who is probably gonna get like and has gotten a lot of accolades, a lot of like awards. Probably gonna get like soundtrack awards as well. Um, and it's one of my new favorite movies. I would say listen, Sinners is like definitely like top 10 of my favorite movies all time. All time. And so I wanted to do a deep dive and like I did it obviously like right after I saw it once. I rewatched it. I saw it about like 8 times. And then I was like, what do you mean I'm on the spectrum? I should have like fucking guessed that. I should have guessed that. Oh my god, I don't know how to do YouTube. You cannot swear. Okay. Let me not swear for like 10 minutes. So first of all, I want to start off like if we're like talking like beginning of the film because yeah, I kind of like know the movie by heart. So I know that it starts with Miles Kenton. So the actor, so the character is Sammy. Sammy going into his father's church, okay? Probably Baptist church from what I saw in the movie because also the father is not a father in the way of like Christianity, but he's a pastor slash preacher. So very two different things. We start off right at the end of the movie, kind of, because Sammy is coming in and already is bitten up, and we get like some flashbacks from like the movie and what happened during the night that he like the night before he comes in the church in the morning. What I want to start with is the twins' father. I know it's really weird, but to me, it just makes sense because the twins' father is very like important to the story in the way that if we have to present all of the characters, you would tie them to the twins' father. You would have to because that's how the story comes together. Because, like, Sammy is linked to the twins because they're family, and so they're family through the twins' father. So Mr. Moore, probably because the twins' family name is Moore, so they probably took their father's name. I'm guessing. Elijah, Smoke, and then Elias, Stack, Moore come from this person. So their father, their mom died in childbirth. Only had their father in their life. Okay, and their father has a brother, Jedediah, and Jedediah is Sammy's father and also the pastor slash preacher. And so all of this ties together like right from the beginning. You can tell already that they have a very like rocky family situation because we literally have this view of the father Sammy, which is in most of like the viewers, like we didn't really like Sammy's father, but Sammy's father in some way was like trying to embody like the perfect person, the perfect father, the perfect man. Whereas his brother was very abusive. We know this because, like Sammy asks in the car at some point, like, "Oh yeah, so what happened to your father? Did you really kill him? Like, because there's a rumor going around since they were kids that the twins killed their father, when actually, like, it was just from what Stack says. So Elias, it was just Elijah Smoke who killed their father. And so we know that they were in a very abusive household and that they took shelter in Mary, so this character, Mary's mother's house, okay? And they would go there when things would get rocky and, They would give them a bed, they would give them food, as like we understand. Let's talk about the parallels between the two dads, because we have Sammy's dad and we have the twins' dad. The twins' dad, you know, well, obviously, like really impacted them because now they apparently have lived a life of crime. Everybody knows them as like stone-hearted, very cold people, when really, like, when we see them we're like, oh, they're badass, but it was probably different when they were still in the Delta before they left for Chicago, but 7 years earlier they were still at the Delta and apparently doing a lot of crime, probably killing people, etc. So kind of turning to crime, like most kids out of abusive households. That's usually the way they go in movie tropes, I'm speaking. Anyways, so there's this path, and it's like when the dad of Sammy sees Sammy going into the car with the cousins, so his nephews, coming back into town after 7 years, and he knows like how his brother was, etc., etc. And he just like he has this look when Sammy goes into the car, like, oh, I really hope he doesn't go down the path of the twins, of his cousins. Maybe that's what I think. This is my interpretation of the movie. I think the dad became a pastor slash preacher to get away from his brother's shadow, the shadow of an abusive man. And he wanted to be the opposite of what his brother was. But we can see all throughout the movie that the dad just loses sight of what Sammy is, who he wants to be, how to approach your kid without all of those morals again and again and again, because then you're just preaching to someone. So in a way it's like Sammy is always in a church, because we never see Sammy with his dad except for the scenes in the church. We never see them two at home. We only see Sammy and his mom at home, but we never see Sammy and his dad outside of the church. So to me, that's a very like big symbolism on like the dad is really a preacher also at home. He's not like an actual parent. He's more like a preacher talking about morals and but in reality, like, yeah, we never see him at home, we only see him in the church. And so that's when we can first start to like better understand the movie and better understand the dynamics between the two dads, the kids, the cousins. Next, I want to talk about Mary. A lot of people hate Mary because she, like, they see her as responsible for what happened at the juke joint, because she was the first one to be turned as a vampire. um I think truly that that is absolutely stupid to hate Mary. I'm sorry, but Mary very clearly like went to Stack, so Elias, and told them like, okay, I should like go out to see like what they have, what money they have, like what they got, because like if they got money to spend, like of course we're gonna let them in. Like you need that. You're like in a white, like surrounded by white people in this like place. You have to like get like maybe like a white band to play or something, because otherwise how are you gonna explain how you got all that wine and the Irish beer if there ain't no white people in there? And so Mary was extremely practical thinking. And just to go back on her, Mary is intended, so she's played by Haley Steinfeld, I think. But Mary is white passing, but Mary is black. So Mary's black by her mom, okay? And we know this because at the beginning of the film, when she sees Stack for the first time, she was also in town. So they both came back to town, but she was in town for the burial of her mother that took place a week before the story that we see in Sinners. And Stag just came back for, well, the juke and whatever shit they got going on. I believe Stack really intended to go to the funeral, but maybe, probably didn't, or maybe didn't even know that the mother died or passed away. I don't think that they would know, because it's really clear that it's heavily imply that they haven't had contact with anyone from the Delta since like they left for Chicago. Oh my god, this light is killing me. Anyway, and so I just think I don't know if they knew that the mother was dead. And anyways, let's talk about Mary. So Mary was in love with Stack when Stack used to come around just for shelter when the dad was acting crazy, probably. And also after that. And they had a kind of like budding romance from what we understand when they were teenagers. And so apparently, Stack Smoke kind of arranged for Mary to marry a white man from another district so that she could live her life, like girl, you white passing, just go and marry a rich white man or like do your life, like live your life, like this ain't no place for you, like you don't got nothing to do here. And so they did, so they married her and then they left, and Mary thought that Stack would come back for her, but Stack didn't come back for her, which, well, broke her heart. But if you ask me, that is a little subtle foreshadowing when, like, Mary's like, I waited, and it's like everyone here has something to settle. Like, we have to close this chapter. And this chapter is all about the twins. It's all about the twins, their romantic interest. I think that's why we see like Smoke going to see Annie. We see Stack seeing Mary, and then Preacher Boy, Sammy like encountering Perline, but actually not encountering because they've seen each other before. And it's like, okay, we need some clarity on all of this, and I think that's what this movie does. I think that like the point of the movie is like there was all of this crazy shit happening before, and we need to settle the score. Things like need to be said, chapters need to be closed, and that's exactly what this movie does. The camera keeps moving. I hate it. But anyway, so and that's what this movie does, and it's either by death, by finding your love again, which is the case for both twins. If you have watched the movie, you will understand what I'm saying. Um, and yeah, for Preacher Boy to leave it all behind, like this is a rotten place, and you cannot build great things on rotten ground. I think that's really what is intended to like be understood by the viewer in the movie, that everything comes from somewhere, because there's all of this about the ancestors and all of this about even Remick, but I will dive into that character later. The fact that the Delta, like we see a lot of like cotton plantations, the black side of town, which is way like poorer than like the rich side of town, where like the Chows, which is the Chinese family, immigrant family, that they can cross both borders, and we kind of like see the whole like set of like the Delta. And the Delta just really seems like a rotten place. We understand that there was a lot of clan activities before in the Delta, which makes sense because the Delta, for those of you who don't know, like that's not a movie thing, because I've seen people like think that the Delta is like a movie thing. It's not a movie thing. Like, yes, that's where like most plantations were, and that's in the South. It was like a valley that would cross like around like all of Texas slash like, and it would just like go like kind of up like this way through the valley, and the Delta is part of the valley. We know we know the story, and they know the story, like the history about you know slavery and all of that, and the struggle of Black people. I don't know, in a beautiful way shows it, but in a very beautiful manner. And I've seen other like reactions to the movie, and they say all the same thing. Like even in the plantations, they don't show like hard moments. They show the moments where like maybe like the sharecroppers were like kidding in between themselves, da da da, talking about their plans for the night, talking about what they were gonna do, and we see them in the juke, so in the big kind of house slash ranch that they run it out, that twins rent it out to make into a juke joint where music would play. It's like they wanted to create a place for all of those people, all of those black people. And, of course, because at that time, those black people, and we see it because they only have like plantation money, etc., were still very much enslaved, even though it was like on the lay low and it was like they had more freedom, but it was still slavery. It was still slave labor. The house, the juke joint, it's way more than a juke joint. Stack, when he sees like people paying with the plantation money, he's like, yeah, of course that makes sense. But Smoke, he's like, nah, we're accepting only US dollars here. That money isn't worth anything. That's what he thinks. Because again, Smoke seems to be way more impulsive than Stack. And I think that that is why Smoke is called Smoke and why Stack is called Stack. Because Smoke, Elijah, has, first of all, been a soldier in the war, has PTSD from killing people, etc. That's why he has trembles, if you notice. That's why Stack rolls all of his cigarettes because he cannot roll. And that's why also at the end, when he kills the Grandmaster of the clan, he takes one of his cigarettes that's already rolled up, like the industrial ones, which at that time was only affordable by white people. And I don't know how he did it because I'm a smoker. And if I didn't have a cigarette for that whole night with those vampires, I would have said, come on in, come and get me. At least you know how to roll cigarettes. And so throughout the movie, we can see the brothers are very, very different, but at the same time, very, very close. But they're very different because we can see that Stack. And again, this is my interpretation. I didn't like research what Smoke and Stack meant actually. Like, I don't know if the director or whatever, like, if someone spoke about that, but to me, Smoke is called Smoke because, first of all, he killed his father. So, and like how in English we say smoking people for killing people. And he is also the one who is always fastest with the gun. And you see that throughout the movie, even with the truck, when there's people trying to steal the truck. Bam. With the vampires, bang, 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 bang. And same at the end with the clan. Like, like had all of those weapons. Smoke. And also obviously he smokes. But, you know, he cannot roll a cigarette, but he smokes people. Stack to me is kind of the provider. It's like stacking shelves, if that makes sense. Like he is stacking like the money, the things, like he's taking care of any like every and other, like he is trying he's trying to make Smoke's life easier. That's how I see him. And I think that's why on the first shot that we see them, we see Smoke first, very serious, very in his like whatever, and then it turns when we see them both. And Stack is behind him, rolling his cigarette and then passing it to him. That has a big of symbolism. I think that Stack, even if they're twins, Stack clearly is the youngest, probably out of the two brothers. And I mean that like in the symbolically. Obviously, they're twins, so they were born at the same time. But Stack was the one who was knocked out by his father, and Smoke was the one to kill the father. So kind of like he kind of endorsed this role of a big brother from like childhood, even though they were twins. And even when he went to the war, and Stack didn't, and he just has a lot of traumas that Stack, symbolically or else, has never seen. Because, for example, when Smoke killed his dad, Stack was passed out, so he didn't witness um the the actual killing. He just witnessed his own abuse, and then that was it. Because before Smoke killed him, Stack was knocked unconscious by the father. And so that just means Stack has a lot of repressed feelings, and we can see in the movie because you can see that he's trying to make the juke joint just good for everyone, good for his brother, good for Annie, good for all of the public. Like, yes, pay with your plantation money. Oh, you know what? Like instead of like hiring, like, I don't know, really good blues players that are in the Jukes already, he went to Slim. He went to Slim that was on the street with the harmonica, and he was recruiting people. Stack was recruiting people. Again, stack, like that word, stacking. He keeps on stacking. And he was recruiting, in a way, his own clan. Again, I'm not saying a clan with a K, I'm saying a clan with a C. He was recruiting his own clan for the Juke. Just like the clan with a K recruits their recruits. Oh, come and hate with us. But also, that's what a preacher does. So, like, just like Sammy's dad, who also recruits the church community, he's recruiting as well. But also, and this is where we get to the very interesting part, Remick. Remick was creating a clan and he was recruiting as well. In this movie, there are four or five, I would say four recruiters that are trying to form a clan because of like their ideas. Obviously, one of them we're not even going to talk about because, like, who cares about the clan with a K? Like, I'm not even going to talk about that. But that's not like, anyway. They're so small in the movie. I love how the movie made them so small, like made them like so small and forgettable that you can just forget about them even in your reviews. So we don't care about that clan. Bye. And you're all dead anyway. And so yeah, everyone was actually recruiting and kind of searching for community. And even if that was, in some cases very for Weird Clan, talking about the vampires and talking about the clan with a K. The others, like the church recruiting and it just had like a symbolism to it. And the fact that Sammy and Smoke are left out kind of that recruiting. And like the only people that Smoke goes to for recruiting are the people that he probably wanted to see in the first place, because he only recruits Annie, which is the mother of their stillborn child, and, well, the Chows, which apparently Bo, the husband of the Chows, the Chow family, was a good friend. They seem about the same age, right? Um, of Smoke, probably a very good friend of Smoke. So, he was just going around seemingly recruiting, but kind of more like reunioning with everyone. Whereas Stack was really recruiting because when he sees Mary, is because Mary comes up to him. He didn't go to see Mary, he went to search for musician apart from his cousin. So that's also like, impactful. And I think that you can see that it ties together because when they come and get him in the car, there's the two twins and they come to get Sammy, and it's just because they want to see him. That's just that's just family stuff. But when Stack is in the car with Sammy, he's like, "Oh, play music," and he's like, "Whoa, we're gonna make some money." So Stack has this very like eccentric personality. Like, yes, let's recruit people. Let's groove at the juke joint tonight. Yeah, it's gonna be lit. Blah blah. And he's a very good talker and a very charming talker. I mean, it's Michael B. Jordan, so has to be. And just overall, much more joyful and joyous person than Smoke. Smoke is way more serious, way more serious. Stack is always smiling, and even as a vampire, he is. He's always smiling and always has that confident, feeling. When Smoke really feels like Smoke feels trapped by the Delta. He feels like he can never escape what happened in the Delta, which is probably the reason why he came back to the Delta. Stack knows that as well. Stack is probably also stuck in the Delta in some way, but is trying to make it better than it was. It feels like Smoke is just returning for a reunion with his past. It doesn't feel like he's very like, oh yeah, confident into changing the Delta. I don't think he's confident into changing anything. Not the people around him, not the situations. He feels very desperate. And, with the mentions that he has PTSD with the tramples, and we understand that he was a soldier and cannot roll cigarettes, probably has like, and with the traumas, you can see that he has very strong post traumatic stress from everything. And the war probably just made it out, come like, just made it really like full on. And when he lost his baby, I mean, he's had a lot of traumatic events happen to him. um and so it's really interesting to see just like the brothers approach to like coming back in the Delta, like just by their face, just by their like humor, or like what they say, because Stag does all of the humor pretty much. Smoke doesn't really laugh. But anyway, but Smoke is still happy to see the people from his past, even though they're tied to traumatic events, and probably needed that. He probably needed that to move past some things and to find peace, I think. And I think that is why Smoke dies on Delta Land, because it started here, it ends here. I think he was tired. And we all know that he had the mojo bag of Annie, who was his lover in the Delta and mother of the stillborn. He had this mojo bag around him all the time, even at war. Never took a bullet, never like, but like at the end of the movie, he takes it off. Annie's dead by her choice because she doesn't want to be a vampire. We're gonna dive into that, why she doesn't want to be a vampire. But anyway, she doesn't want to be a vampire, so he has to kill her and drive a stake into her heart. Before Sammy goes, he tells him, "Go as far as you can, like just go," which kind of means that Sammy has his blessing to leave for Chicago, because at first Smoke in the juke was like, I will kill you right here if you try and leave tomorrow. But in the morning, it's all different after all that, everything that happened. He's like, go. And it's kind of like Smoke talking to a younger Smoke, because I believe that it is Smoke that decided for the twins, okay, we should go to Chicago. We should leave this place. I think it was Smoke, like he couldn't handle everything that he had lived. And I think that part when he's like, he tells Sammy to go, it's kind of like he's talking to his younger self. It feels like that anyway. And it's like the final act, um, you know, like, just leave this place, like leave. There's nothing here. It's rotten soil again. And then obviously like goes out in a bang and dies with his baby, his daughter in his arms. um and it is just a beautiful scene, and it just shows like why, like, I think Smoke knew he was gonna die like all along. And he only came back to tie some loose ends. Stack was the one to live forever because Mary turned him. All know that Stack is the one who killed Annie, but Stack, I think the reason why Stack bit Annie first, kind of like Mary did with Stack, is because he wanted her to live forever. He wanted her to be in the community, to join the clan, etc., etc. Why? Because of his brother. And Stack, again, is a people pleaser, but only for his brother. He tries to make everything right for his brother. And when he saw all of the vampires swarming in, I believe, yeah, he went for Annie first because he knew that Annie was the only other important thing that Smoke had in that juke, in life in general. I think Stack, so Elias, was trying to do his brother again another kindness, always trying to repay him for everything. It's like, look, I'm giving your lover immortal life, you know. And people, like, I think people really read that scene wrong, and I just wanted to like give my interpretation. I think my interpretation makes more sense. I don't know, but yeah, I none of the time he never wanted to kill Annie. Annie just didn't want to be a vampire, and Stag didn't think about that. He didn't think about that maybe she had the choice to kill herself or ask someone to kill her, which Smoke did at the end. But when Smoke is killing Annie, Stag rushes, and Mary as well. They rush like, no, don't kill her. She has a mortal life. What are you doing? But it was a choice of love, and those two couples, they both made the choice. Mary wanted to live forever with Stag because she waited for him forever, and she got that, and now they live happily ever after, as you know, because we see them in 92 at the end of the movie, so they continue on living and are pretty dope together. And then there's Annie and Smoke, who are together with their kids in the afterlife. So, actually, happy ending for both of those love stories, and kind of like the brothers taking their independence from each other. Um, Smoke making a different choice than Stack, and Stack making a different choice than Smoke. It kind of like separates the twins who have been really just tangled up since the beginning. But I don't know, like, like in every family there's some toxic bonds, and I think that they had a lot of toxicity. Obviously, I think that everyone like understood that. And so there's also symbolism about freedom, the freedom of choice, even if like us as viewers we feel sad that Smoke and Annie and their child died. Really, for Smoke, like his death was the way to be with them. And we have to respect that choice. And so, Sinners to me is about freedom. And last part of the video, my favorite character, because to me it ties it all together, Remick. Remick, the infamous vampire who caused a lot of shit. I cannot swear on YouTube. Anyway, um, Remick was a vampire. He is dead at the end of the movie, and I think he really likes that. He loves being dead. Like, that was the ultimate act of, like, to me, if my interpretation of this movie, that to me means freedom, like freedom to like follow your own path into life, and freedom of choice, and freedom of like where you go. um Remick ties it all together, because Remick doesn't have freedom to go. He is stuck on Earth forever. Forever. And he is sad and lonely as hell, which is why he recruits and forms a clan as well. Remick, from what we understand, first of all, from his name, but also from like what he says, Catholics, and what he says about like even just his accent that goes slowly from very southern, or talking like this, like Irish speaking like this. We understand that this vampire comes from Ireland. It's also when Sammy is reciting a prayer to try and be safe from him, that we understand why Remick wanted Sammy so much. It's not Sammy that he wants. Like, Of course, if you're into the horror genre, physically talking, yes, he wants Sammy in his clan. He wants to turn Sammy into a vampire. But that's just vampire lore. There's nothing about that. Psychology behind it, however, is just outstanding. So we understand that Remick is an old vampire from Ireland, and he was there during the time that Ireland was colonized. If you know this, you know this. If you know the history of Ireland, but Ireland had a pretty rough colonization um, on their land because during the colonization there was mass murders and also famine. I know what you're thinking. The vampires like like the very basis of a vampire is that they feed on others. Remick was there in Ireland in the time of the famine. So then again, you can see the symbolism about the hunger that he has. He's drooling when he wants to turn someone. He's drooling, and that's like he's hungry. So we understand that he lived in Ireland during the very most terrible times of, even though like every colonization had its own terrible times, like Ireland had a decade where it was very bad. So we understand that he's probably, yeah, from like that time, very bad time. And obviously a lot of people were killed. From what we understand, since he's alone, he is just him, just one vampire. He doesn't have his family with him anymore. Probably had a family because he talks about it when Sammy is reciting the prayer. And he tells him, you know, you don't think I know that prayer? I know that prayer. That prayer was forced onto me too, just like it was forced onto you, which has obviously like a lot of symbolism about, you know, how most colonized people were converted to a certain religion, and so the Irish as well for Catholicism. He says the words and he says, but I still find comfort in those words, even though they were used to colonize them. And I think that the reason why he says that is because he really misses the family that he had, probably, or the neighbors, like everyone in his fucking village that probably died. I think Remick has had a lot more loss than all of the other characters, actually. Um, a lot of loss. But because he probably lost all of his family, probably lost all of his friends, probably lost all of his neighbors, whatever. Lost basically most of his country during the colonization. Um, and in horrific ways of hunger, etc. And so the fact that he's a vampire now, feeding on others, it's like he lives vicariously through others. He needs a community, he needs a clan because he feels very alone. And what is said by Annie, I think she's practicing hoodoo from what I know and from my like religion and ancestors, etc. Annie, who is hoodoo, um, and I know that very well. Obviously, because I have a my religion is basically kind of a branch of hoodoo. So we venerate like we pray to our ancestors, we honor our ancestors, etc., etc. And there is a legend, which is the monologue of Annie, who should win an Oscar, where Annie is like, there's a tale, a legend of people that can like make music so true that it can pierce the veil between the living and the dead. And that's how we connect to our ancestors. This is very big in my culture and also Annie's culture. And she still has it, probably because it was passed down by her mom or before. She probably comes from a lineage of hoodoo and of Black people who were enslaved but still remained on the traditional side. So not at all like Jedediah, which is the father of Sammy. And so very different paths taken there. And then again, the theme of the movie, the main theme comes back: freedom of choice, freedom to choose where we go. Because Jedediah went with the colonizers' beliefs, and Annie did not. Okay, and again, that is freedom of choice, freedom of where to go. Where do we go from here after traumatic events? What do you do? And so she talks about that, and Remick, all that he wants really is to be with his ancestors again. He wants to see them. And he tells that to Sammy at the end of the movie. The reason I want you is because of the talent that you have. Because when there was that scene, best scene, I think, to me, yes, like it is one of the best scenes in cinematic history. It is so good. It's the scene where they're in the juke joint, which is a burning building at the end, but like are just playing music, like Sammy's playing music, and there's all of those spirits from the past and the future coming back. There's even a hoodoo figure, which I'm sure like Annie was glad, but it probably was there for Annie. Anyways, and Remix saw through that, and he was like, okay, I can be with my ancestors again if I get this little kid in my clan and he plays music all the time. And I can just see them. I can see my family. I can see my ancestors, because that's the point of the music, apparently. And that's what Remick saw in Sammy. And obviously, Remick gets killed by Smoke. Again, Smoke killing people. I really think that's why he was named that way. And so Smoke kills him, and and he has this, like, on the scene where Remick dies, he is burning alive, literally. He's beginning to burn like literally, like with flames. And he doesn't really yell. There's no really sign of like anguish or anything. It's more like he's witnessing it, like, wow, finally. And as he dies, the sun rises. This man hasn't seen the sun in a long time. Anyway, um, and his soul just kind of warps up into like a flame and goes into the sky, and there's a scream. And but it's very weird because he wasn't screaming when he was burning and he was still alive as a vampire. He wasn't screaming. It's only when his soul like went to like the sky that he pushed out the scream. To me, that wasn't a scream of pain. I think that was a scream of relief. Like, I don't know. I think like it's just all of the. It was a scream of pain, but in the way like not of the pain of like of going through the death in itself, not about the flames. It was more a scream about like all of the pain that he felt all of his life, all of his vampire life, probably, and the traumas before, like all of that following him, being alone for so long, wanting to connect to people so much that you have to kill them for them to be with you. Um, and just like scouting for any people who have a link with their ancestors. That's why we see the indigenous tribe at the beginning. He probably went to them. He probably went to them because, as you know, most indigenous people, especially in the Delta at that time, were very linked to their ancestors. They had a lot of rituals that were common with Black people, Irish people, and that's also like the thing about this movie. It ties all of like the stories of the people, the minorities, together. Um in a very beautiful way. Like you come out of that movie with a sense of a bigger community. Even if we're divided now, black people, Irish people, etc., etc., have like hoodoo people, like so many rituals are the same. So many symbolism, like so many like symbolic stuff is the same. The burning building and then the vampires burning when the sun comes up. Everything that has to do with fire, like there's so much. There is so much. Everything that has to do with the guitars and the fiddle, the Irish fiddle, like it's and the kora, like loved it. You know which clan wasn't isn't included though in that community sense? You know which one. The clan with a K. But anyway, I think Remick saw that warmth, and Sammy was so afraid of him. He held his face like you would hold the face of a child, and he was like, "You don't think that I don't know those words? You don't think that I don't know the praise you're saying? You don't think that I don't know the music? You don't think I can play the guitar? Like we have all those things in common. Do you really think I found you for nothing? Like just by no, this was fate." And that's really like what came through in the scene. And Remick I, has a good ending, a happy ending, because he gets to finally die and go home to his ancestors and be with them. And that's great, but we don't know if he does end up with them. We will never know because we don't see that, because the only afterlife that we see is the life of someone who wasn't turned into a vampire, and that was the afterlife of Smoke, which was a human. So we don't know actually if vampires actually ever reunite with their ancestors or with their families or with the dead ones, because technically they were already dead. So we don't know that. So to me, his scream was either like a scream of like, ah, I've lived all of this shit. I've lived all of this stuff and I can finally go home. Ugh, you know? And cuz Remick, just like Stack, was always very he was always smiling and always very confident. But this man, he has lived through hell. Which I think that's why they wanted to picture him kind of like as the devil, because he has lived hell. He's lived hell on earth, like most of the characters in the movie. But his hell is way more like, I don't know, it's way more mysterious. It's more, because there's also vampire lore that ties into that. Like, anyways. But I feel very happy for Remick. I hope he found his ancestors. Um, and like I'm really happy. And like for Vampire, who's like probably 1,000 years old or something, he would have seen Smoke coming with with that spike. I'm sorry, but he would have seen it coming. If it's, I'm sorry, but that motherfucker, that that man is able to fly. You really think he didn't like knew that Smoke was behind him the whole time? To me, Remick intended to die because the sun, he saw as he was speaking to Sammy that the sun was rising anyway. He was gonna die. So he knew he was gonna die. I think the monologue that he did to Sammy was just to explain why he did the horrible thing that he did to Sammy. Why he like, because he's like the reason for this whole night. And so he's explaining. And he's like, just so you know, you would have been dead anyways because the clan is coming for you tomorrow. But like, I didn't want that. I wanted us to be like a group, a community, And I wanted us to connect with our ancestors, which I thought was extremely poetic. And love Remick. I love Remick. Like honestly, if you just change the the music at some moments, Remick is just so girly pop. He's just so cute and clearly has been through a lot. And well, I wish him every happiness that there is possible. And I wish everyone in this movie, except for the clan, which is dead anyway, happiness. And yeah, all that to say that I this was a great movie because it made me think a lot, also about my faith, because I practice something close to Annie's faith, and it was just such a good movie for me. um and just all of the symbolism that I just kind of try to entangle, like, and like, anyway, I tried to explain it to you how I saw it, but maybe you didn't get it because I have, well, I'm an ADHD girly and I kind of went off track a lot of times. And this is my first movie review. So, don't be mean to me, please. But that's it. That was it for Sinners. Great movie. And maybe give it a rewatch after this video. Okay, bye.